Many of you in the call, I think, know me. My name is Girish. I run this idea of Raahi, which is meant to be a platform that can help with public goods and knowledge for social impact professionals. The idea of the knowledge exchange sessions, we've had over the years, a few of them around L&D, skill mapping, rewards, performance management, recruitment. The idea is all of us as HR professionals, can we come together and discuss with each other, learn from each other's practices? We are entering this conversation with different starting points. Many organizations are making that 0 to 1 journey कि अभी कुछ भी नहीं है, and we need to start building systems, and we don't have a dedicated L&D team. HR team ही एक दो लोगों की है. Second, we have people who are building some of those systems are kind of getting there. And there are a few organizations here who also have very sophisticated or very sophisticated systems that are being put in place, which they can also perhaps share about. And the questions that people have today as we start this conversation are as following. First is getting clarity ki needs kya hai. For our employee, what are the things that they need to get training and learning on versus what are other gaps that are actually a motivation skill, just asking for training, etc. Second is how do you become more intentional in L&D? जब भी opportunities आती है, we jump on it. But what we are looking for is how do you also ensure that we are more proactive in shaping these opportunities. Third is how do you design inclusive and differentiated learning? सबको एक समान देने के जगह, can you give differentiated learning? Fourth is how do you make sure that what you are delivering is high quality and it sticks? Fifth is ठीक है training कर दिया, learning दे दिया, but how do you connect that to their future career journey? And finally, what are the tools and systems that we can leverage? LMS क्या use कर सकते हैं? All of that. These are the questions, if I synthesize, that have come from all of you in the form. The main message that I want to give you is we all seem to be roughly in the same boat and we all have similar questions. And let us use this space just for a discussion to learn from each other and share out whatever practices you might find helpful to share. If I take these 6 areas, here is what people are largely saying. मैंने basic points screen पे रखा है. I mean, डालूंगा. I'll bring it up one by one and I'll voice over what I found. There is more deeper information, but that can come out from all of you in conversation. When we look at training needs, one of the things that keeps coming is training mat socho, think about what you actually need to do, right? What are the performance that areas that you really want your employees to behave on, to perform on, and let us focus on that. वो समझने के लिए let us use what you have as signals. Different people have different signals available. जो हाथ में है उससे समझ लो. One of the or some of the few things that you can use is performance reviews and what comes out in that. Now you have also AI tools where you can process, large parts of performance reports and try to identify what are the common themes coming out. You have the goal setting that people might do. You have manager feedback. Just talk to the top 5 managers and be like, what are the things that your team needs training on, etc. And third is, not everything is an L&D problem. My bad if transcription was, I have just turned on transcription. Thank you for whoever requested that. Third is to test whether it's actually a skill gap, something that can be trained, or is it a motivation problem? Is it an expectation problem? It is a workload problem. Is it a systems problem? Agar wo hai, so the solution may look different. It may not be running a training for your associates. It might be running a training, for example, for the managers who need to learn how best to delegate their work or manage team workload, for example. Second, on becoming more intentional on L&D, the message that came out was, look, let's set a very small number of priorities. सब कुछ एक साथ नहीं होगा. Don't try to build a perfect system. How do you build a minimum viable L&D plan? तो 4-5 priorities across the organizations पकड़ लीजिए. उसमें से create short development plans की what are the 5 things that I can do in the coming time. आज ही calendar these quarterly or biannual conversations so that it's fixed on your calendar that you will be able to then use that to checkpoint where you have reached and put all the trainings on the calendar. You figure out the details later, but get started. And finally, don't do this alone. You also need the organization leadership and the managers to come with you. in this process. And you can't give the same learning to everybody, but that may, and therefore you think about differentiation. But baat ye hai ki first you create a common learning core, and after this I'll also show you what are the most common topics that have come up, and you'll find that they are relevant for everybody. So create a common learning core, and then supplement that with additional pathways for roles and levels. Don't think only about formal programs that are trainings. Also think about how you can use mentoring, peer learning, exposure visits, and all of that for the session. Hi, Sahana, nice to meet you. Third is maybe one thing you can try is, मान लो कि you have a session on a particular topic. Let's say managing time that you have meant for managers. Keep it also open to your high performing associates to join, right? Or if you have training on report writing, make it compulsory for the communications team and the MEL team, but also keep it open to program members who want to learn. Fourth is through, well, if you have it, then individual learning budgets help people to decide what they want and engage in courses outside. And ensure that you also work with the managers to protect time. I know it's easier to say it than actually do it, but open that conversation. Echoes of the same thing we looked at. When you look at actually the learning design and delivery, design it based on what you have. मतलब perfect plan मत देखो, use what you have. If you have high quality internal facilitators, उनको use करो. If you have a good partner organization that might be able to help with certain sessions, leverage them. Some parts wherever you can try for external facilitators where you have budgets. Again, L&D is not just training, it is also other things. So can you use free wale items like learning circles? If you look at today's knowledge exchange session, look at this as a low cost, leveraging the energy of the room approach for you to grow stronger as an L&D professional, right? So can you shape even learning circles, especially after the basic competency level of an entry level person? Often you learn from others in your cohort, and that might be a way that you just facilitate a space and create learning. Recognition and promoting the learning. Once that learning has happened, how do you build that into the role and how do you recognize that? Which comes to the next point, saying performance reviews should be linked as much as possible to identify development areas. Try to create a simple competency framework. Lamba chauda, 6 dimensions, 7 sub indicators, wo sab nahi chahiye. But at least pick 5 things that you think every employee should know and behave, which is usually, I usually start with the values of the organization. And uske niche, you can translate those values into competencies that you need to show. Use your managers as much as you can as coaches. And if they need coaching, maybe they can get coaching from outside that you can shape. And consciously build. Usually what happens is that CEO, CXO ke niche, there is a sudden drop in quality, right? In terms of competency. So how do you build that second line of leadership? Because instead of trying to solve things for 300 people, if you solve it for those 15 people who everybody reports to, you can make a big difference in how the org is experienced by the employee. And finally, such boleto, most people who filled the form don't have a formal learning management system. Most people use Excel, Google Sheets, etc. Piali, nice to see you. Piali had mentioned that she has been using Appo LMS, and she can share a little bit about that LMS if required as well. And different ideas by which you manage with limited budgets is pooling the common needs, using internal experts, all of the things that we have spoken about already. 2 more slides and I'm closing and opening for discussion. What are the most common things that have come out as training needs? इसमें एक भी नहीं है जो role specific है. Everyone needs to understand leadership and people management. Feedback, difficult conversations, and taking accountability तो सबको चाहिए. AI, digital, and data literacy is going to be useful in most roles, as is module management, project management, stakeholder management, time management. Monitoring and evaluation, while you might say it's a specialized thing, my belief is that everyone needs to understand it so that it will become useful and easy for you to work towards impact. Because ultimately, हम जो social sector में हैं, all of us are trying to work towards impact. And M&E is just a way in which you understand वो impact कैसे होता है. And finally, on communication, facilitation, and content development, especially for the education or training-oriented organizations, this became number 7 became a focus. Last thing I want to share with you, what were the main takeaways that I can share with you from the last session, which was the minimum viable L&D system जो मैं बोल रहा था. शुरू करो priority competencies से. From there, you go to the learning needs. So these are the competencies everyone needs. So this must be the learning needs. So here are the 5 trainings that we will do minimum in this year. Let me send the calendar invite. And here is how I will see it happen in the workplace. मान लो मैंने report writing पे training किया है. It should turn up in better reports. And then collect the feedback from managers saying, दिख रहा है क्या? Is anything changing? And make sure that you review that in like a 6-monthly or 3-monthly cycle. Don't try for extreme magic to happen in a year, but at least try for some positive movement and keep building on that over the year. And what we said is also that measurement ke bare mein, which we haven't spoken about earlier, I just plugged it in here. There is a simple couple of things that I said. There is the whole Kirkpatrick wala evaluation, which is how many people came, how many people, what did the feedback say, and after that, how many people applied. You can look at 30-day, 60-day follow-up, just talk to 5 people and be like, how did it go, etc., etc. And finally, one of the standard questions which people have, and this, all of you who were there in the last session, bad on us, we did not do it. We had discussed saying we should create a common repository of organizations that can help and L&D resources which are there. Now, we never ended up doing it, but here are the names that came up in our conversation. There's Rajalka Consulting. Priyanka from there had joined us last time as well. CollabX seems to do trainings in the sector. Atma had created this intermediary database, which is available online. If you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. I'm happy to send it over, which we didn't check, but it might have certain services like this as well. Someone mentioned Wisdom Tree, and in the feedback form, somebody had mentioned Sambhavana Institute and the GP Birla Fellowship. That's it from me. Now the floor is open to all of you. Feel free to lead us down a path of the questions that you have.
Sure, maybe I can get us started. I think I was there for the last conversation as well, and I think we have discussed how, these, you got it bang on when you said that all these competencies are pretty similar to every NGO that works in any kind of sector. I think leadership, managing difficult conversations, uh, just team management, those kind of things are very, very useful in that way. I wanted to know if people are doing different things for, and that was my question earlier on chat as well. How are different organizations here managing the unique needs that come up? So, yes, maybe perhaps a, s- a set of leaders need, competency around leadership development training, but maybe there are specific people who need, more attention on certain areas, like uh, perhaps the team has grown suddenly under their leadership, and so they need, something that's more different versus, the others. And being organizations that are stretched for time, resources, it's very difficult for us to do something that's more customized. So I'm trying to understand if people are able to balance that. Like, yes, there are large group spaces, large group interventions, but are there smaller, focused interventions and support that all of you are kind of doing within your organization?
Feel free to unmute and share. I know कि मतलब 10-15 मिनट मैंने बात किया, but that's it from me largely. Now it's over to all of you. How have you dealt with people who need special attention? Like they have a specific situation where they need help. Like suddenly you have 5 reportees and you've never managed them before. ऐसे case में, how do you provide that support?
I can share my experience.
Please, Krati.
So not necessarily about, the team has grown or something, but we've had there was a change in the leadership in the program team, and we stepped into a new strategy. We had a new program that went on field. So of course, how people were used to doing things in a certain way with our older program, it kind of changed, and things are changing on ground also very fast. Things are evolving. So there was a need that came up when they were doing like a all program meet where they wanted an external facilitator or coach or somebody external who kind of comes and coaches them on how monitoring and evaluation is normally seen as, just pinpointing the mistakes of people and not really coaching them as to, yeah, identifying the root cause and really being of support rather than kind of, going with a checklist. You've not done this, you've not done this in the field. So we had something like this, and then we looked for external facilitators, and otherwise also if there is a very specific technical kind of a need comes, then we sponsor. Generally we look for external facilitators because you know um, you're right. I mean, with the time and everything, it's not really feasible most of the times that you design something specifically for, say, a 15-member team or stuff. So you have, resources outside that you can find and connect them to. It's just that it always helps if, at the start of the year when you're doing your budgeting, if people kind of have at least ballpark ideas of what they're looking for their teams in the next year. So you can kind of provision for the budgets already. So, yeah.
Anyone else on that? Pranay, please go ahead. Yeah.
So basically, we have already doing this for, I mean, last 3-4 years. So we already have different groups for the learnings pieces. So we have a leadership group, we have a middle managers group, and we have also a group where the new joinees and the tenured members also coming together once in a month. And also it has been properly blocked for the year. So people know ki on these day, this time they have to come together, and there will be a learning dedicated learning space, and where they can also apply and learn. So that we have been doing, but we have actually separated the leadership group and the second line of leadership group as well. Okay, we know these are the things they are capable of and what we can give them more based on their needs, or as the job is also changing, also the situations are also changing. So what are the things we identify at the beginning of the year, firstly, and then as the session goes on, we also try to identify these are the things that is working, we should do more of it, and these are the things maybe we can scrap. So this is what we are trying to do. And also currently we are in the process of building the skills in Cloud, because Cloud also provides you that opportunity to build skills. So we are also exploring that with my manager. Yeah, how we can build Cloud skills which can be helpful for the team members, because we know what are the priority competencies we look for in our employees, right? And based on that, we have designed 2 Cloud skills so far. So this is how we have been approaching. Earlier, we used to have Udemy, but now we have realized people are just consuming rather than applying. So Cloud will actually help them to apply as well while they are learning. So this is how we have been approaching our L&D practices, and it has been helpful so far because this has given us results for last 2-3 years.
I would like to add something.
Please, Piali. And nice to see you.
Thank you. So, what I was thinking that in terms of individual learning goals, what has been working for us and me, I think a little bit is updating the manager. Like if you're talking about individual learning need, वो organization के पास जाने का तरीका नहीं होता है. So the manager is very important, and the role of a manager to kind of uplift someone. So I think what we have been doing, like a monthly kind of a review that has to be conducted by the manager for sure. So monthly kind of a performance discussion, and learning would be a part of it. And the manager has to be trained on how the organization would like to this performance discussion and the learning discussion, which are happening on a monthly basis, has to be learned. The manager has to be trained on that, and based on that, they and the employee has to kind of own these particular learning goal. There is no way a organization or a central department or an HR can kind of manage one-on-one learning needs. It has to be driven by the manager and the person who has to be trained and all of that. So I think distributing it and creating processes so that it can be distributed and not trying to manage it centrally is something that I think that would work. And I have been doing that as well. So I think that's about it.
I really like that. See, such bully, though, all of us are going to have really small HR teams, right? And you'll be 2 people, 5 people, that's all. But as a percentage of the employee size, it has to be 5%. And so I guess the question is, given that, how do we see our role? And this was a conversation that in the last round, this kept coming up saying, what is our role actually? Is it our job to do everything? And where we were actually coming to was to say that, look, we have to pair up with the managers because they are the ones who have the right span, and we have to help empower them and strengthen them. And I really like this idea Piyali mentioned of setting up the process, uh, which is entirely in your control, by the way, as HR and people teams, letting a newcomer know in the orientation that these are the norms. Every 2 weeks, there is a feedback chat that happens between you and your manager, and usme you should put it on the calendar as an example. I'm just giving you an example, and you should ensure that it happens, and you're allowed to give feedback to your manager also. If you set that up as culture and you also communicate that to the managers and to incoming people, slowly you're able to shift the culture in the organization, and that might resolve a lot of your issues. And Divya, to your question, my answer would be that my one small thought would be depends on the situation. If I look at the specific person, if they are high value, and if the specific problem is that they don't know how to manage a large team, which is a generic problem. It's not a problem that is related to only your organization. It's a project management problem. अगर वैसा है, तो I know I have personally benefited also from someone external being connected to me. It was the equivalent of having an executive coach, right? Having an external person just be able to talk to you who's worked for 10 years more than you, and that you can facilitate, right? And even like just asking around in your network saying, hey, listen, we're thinking, do you have any 5 people who could, spend 1 hour a month with our team members? And then you just facilitate that program, and that becomes an entire program because it's a common need. Again, coming back to you have a need, how do you translate that into a program that is low effort, low cost? That's the way that I would approach. Pranay, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, adding on to you, which you have mentioned, Girish. So about the feedback thing. So yeah, this actually helps because we also have this process within our organizations, the monthly growth dialogue, we call it. So in once in a month, manager and the manager comes together where they discuss what they have worked upon during the month and where they have grown, where they have struggled. So the feedback is both like you are giving your feedback to your manager is also giving the feedback to manager. So the reason, the rationale behind this, because when the performance review happens, let's say maybe twice in a year, maybe mid-year and the annual review conversation, and when you are giving the feedback, the manager doesn't have the scope to grow and manager doesn't have the scope to improve, right? So that comes as a shocker, and they might say, okay, we haven't received this feedback earlier, so we could have worked upon that. So this is that thing we keep on doing it continuously. So the manager also grows, the manager also grows based on the feedback they are getting continuously, let's say every month. So this is the process we also have been following, and this has been also helpful. So yeah, just want to.
Perfect. Thank you, Pranay. And like there is this thing that we keep saying that your actual performance review should never become a surprise because you should know everything that's already going into it. And that's what you're trying to solve with the feedback. Nandita, please come in.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm going to shift this a bit and say that sometimes we are also have to deal with trainings which are like Divya said, not for everyone, but for a specific set of people. And they could be very senior people. And that is where it starts getting very tricky. That has been my experience, that it gets very tricky to spell it out to them that they need that training. And at senior management levels, these trainings are generally around soft skills trainings like behavioral, attitudinal. I work with an organization where there are two cohorts of people, one who are legacy, who have been there from the inception and have seen the organization grow from nothing to something, and of course have a different kind of belonging and accountability. And then you have those lateral hires who come with their degrees and with their experience and new ideas. So both need to have a place. So we actually had two people whom we had to sort of train to understand that the audience has changed, the team has changed, the working has changed, how we saw grassroots level NGOs work, the ethos, quote unquote, the culture as again, quote unquote, that, and this is including me. I've been in the sector for 25 years. That includes me as one of those people who who think differently how things are and how things are now,
Yeah.
right? So I think that is a tricky place. And what we did was, it was a long, we decided that we are not going to do anything nature. So what we did is we started grow like a coaching for all the senior leaders, wherein slowly we told the coach to bring out what the biases each one of us has. And she did it so well. And I agree with you that sometimes you need an external person to do it, because if an internal person does it, there is again the whole politics of it and hierarchies and all of those involved. So we did that. And when it narrowed down and slowly, and then we said we'll do one-on-one coaching. So the one-on-one coaching did help. And but side by side, we also started reviewing a lot of processes. And in those processes, we added some features without burdening it. So it went through a good 6-8 months period without burdening it, making it too overwhelming, where it was not, things were not left unsaid. Everything was very documented. So even when it gets talking about, like, I think one of the biggest trainings we need to give people is how to give feedback. Now they say sandwich feedback doesn't work. They say negative feedback only doesn't work. Then, but what does it really work? And that we all know there's no one formula for it. So yeah, closing my statement here, that you can be in very tricky situations, and you need to at that time particularly just having, and founders won't address these because they have a different equation with people who have been in the organization for a long time. So they can't, they are like old buddies who started the organization, and suddenly now you can't expect him to go and say, you know what, you can't say these words, or you can't treat people like that. So the HR and the learning and development team has to show immense maturity and patience, I think, and think of out of box methods. I think another thing that lastly I just wanted to add was that having a platform, we have something called Ekta Manch, where we, or one day, event or a half day event, where we let everybody, irrespective of where they stand in terms of their designations, come and talk about it through a skit or something. And subtle messaging does work. It does not that it doesn't work at all. Senior leadership, you have to also respect their competency and understanding. So yeah, thanks.
Love that. Thanks for sharing that, Aditya. And yeah, no, I'm realizing it's more common than I would have guessed, which is this idea of, we do today have people who are, or let's put it this way. I had someone in my team who told me, 20 years ago when I decided to join the sector, it was a very different sector, right? I had to fight with my father to join. And so someone who's spent 20 years in that space working across organizations will of course come with a different lens from someone who thinks that efficiency is everything and does not realize that there is more than just that to making social impact happen, right? So I love the point that you made. I'm going to capture that both as, how do you ensure that you one, bring in external voices when it is very much a landmine. Second, don't have to deal with it frontally always, sometimes creating larger spaces and using art as expression to vent out your frustrations or bring surface things softly can also be helpful. And yes, HR will have to somehow orchestrate the solution while they may not be the ones actually doing it. But love all of the points. Thank you. What else is on your minds?
I can add something here. I think in the last kind of 1 to 2 years, with multiple discussions that I have been having with nonprofit HR teams, I think there are two things that I have seen that's coming as the most challenging is the learning management and the performance management. These are
What was the first word?
learning management and
Learning management, performance management. Yeah.
these are the biggest bottleneck that I have seen across organization, across a size of the team, that how do you manage performance and how do you manage your learning. And given that I think I am quite dedicated to working in this space and for the long haul. And so hence we started working on a learning management system. When we started working on the learning management system that we have currently, we thought it would be something that a non-profit would use. But I would tell you that, like very recently, we started using the learning management system in our own workflow, and how that has changed something that we were struggling with. So there are these platforms that we have, HRMS, LMS, and all of that, and we have to train people who are onboarding in the platform, right? So we have to train the admin of the organization, we have to train the users of the organization. So we do that live training during the onboarding, which is the first couple of months. But after that, the admin will keep changing because people will leave and join other organizations. The user will keep changing. There will be new users who will come on board and all of that. So we also struggle that how, and within the organization, always the knowledge transfer doesn't happen. It's very rarely it happens because obviously people might be leaving before the other people comes in and all of that. So we all also started to feel that the training has to be repeated, and we didn't had a, that time we didn't set up our LMS for ourselves as well. So later, what we started doing, all of the trainings, like for the admin, for the HR, for the admins, and for the user, we started codifying it and putting it on our platform. So now, when an organization joins any of our platform, and we do one of the onboarding calls where we train the current persons, but then when they leave, when the new person joins, there is literally they have to go to that LMS that we have set up for themselves, and they have to take the training. My team or somebody like us do not have to sit and train them. They will take the training, they'll complete a quiz, and then they'll get a certification, and that tells that they have the basic knowledge. Now they can reach out to the support because they have the basic knowledge. And I think adding that has immensely reduced our workload as well on the learning management part, because that was kind of becoming quite a bit of a thing for us to kind of retrain whenever people are leaving and all of that. So I think I just wanted to share that this is something that we have done, and it has helped how we train people.
Love that. There are two parts to it, right? One is when you have a good training, how do you curate that and ensure that you put it up in a way where that people can access it, right? And that step one is very crucial. Why is that? Because talent comes, talent goes, right? And when you have talent in front of you and they've done something useful, you should put it up. Which, by the way, is also low key. That was where Raahi also came from, saying whenever we do end up having sessions, can we make public goods for the sector and not gatekeep them? And in parallel, there is a second part, Piyali. I'm going to take your logic forward. At the end of the day, ये वहाँ पड़ा रहेगा and nobody will use it. Right? So there is the second part of this, which is actively managing that learning system, right? And pushing it, which, by the way, like which is low effort but can be done. For example, can you think of sending a monthly email, like the HR newsletter equivalent to the organization, saying, here's one resource highlight ki ye training hai. Whoever would like to see can go. Or, for example, appraisal season is coming up. Here's a quick training for managers on how to give feedback meaningfully, right? Uh, or, okay, reporting season is coming. Here's how you write reports. Just wanted to share it with anyone who finds it helpful. And the other way is how do you integrate it into your trainings? So, for example, we've thought of, just last week, I was having a conversation where we were thinking of integrating as pre-work for new hires orientation. We send them some PowerPoint, Excel wale trainings that we had done, just so that wo dekh ke aayenge and then we can catch it and have that conversation. So how do you identify those moments where chances are that people will need it and make it available to them once you've codified?
I would like to add one more thing here. I think what I have seen as well, like whenever you kind of try to push a training, people have other works rather than just taking the training and all of that. So there will be always like a pushback. So there are two things that I think for us, whenever there's a new person who joins an organization and they will be the POC for us, when they ask a question on our support group, we will literally say that please go ahead and take the admin training. After that, we are here to support you. So first of all, when one thing that has worked out on a need basis, that you say that support answers are only available once you have completed the training, and in the LMS you'll be able to track that they have taken it or not, and there's no way to kind of fake it that I have taken it and all of that. So that's one thing. Secondly, I have also seen, mostly in corporates, not in non-profits, that they also see like 30th December is the training that you have to do, and you have to come back to the HR and give them a certificate. So the only people who will be able to submit the certificate is the people who have taken the training, and the LMS does it. And an LMS can do it automatically. That way the HR doesn't have to keep following up. So I think it is also very important to take the load from the HR to send reminders, send constant emails, but to make it in a process that they are self-reporting and you have a report on the LMS platform as well, rather than you kind of keep chasing and reminding them. So yeah, just thought I'd share. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, you run a tough ship. That's great. I mean, like, no, I just think, I mean, what I'm taking away is this idea that, again, our resources are constrained. How do you make maximum value out of the 4 people that you have or the 2 people that you have is by making smart processes where things are forced to happen or like they are maneuvered to happen or orchestrated to happen without having to chase people. My favorite trick there is a calendar invite that forces, at least like everybody wants to do it. They just can't prioritize. Putting a deadline helps people prioritize. Madhura, over to you. Sorry, kept you waiting for a minute.
No, no, that's okay. So I just wanted to add about this LMS thing because we are also thinking about how we can have the whole, lot of things which can be useful as a training for different people. So one thing out of the discussion, what has come out is, I think I forgot the name who was sharing earlier to Piali. So she mentioned that lot of process revisions or improvements they did, right? So what we also thought of is particularly about the performance management system that we should have and improvise lot on feedback system. Okay, and it should not be all the time that before performance management or performance assessment or just after the probation or something like that. So it should be continuous. And can we have it say bi-monthly basis? And there, when the person, when the manager particularly is talking to the team member with respect to whatever are the goals defined for the year, can give a feedback, and at that time he or she can say that these are the things you need to improve, and LMS में ये सारी चीजें है, so you can go and take trainings for basic things, and also if needed for external trainings also we can recommend them. So this is what recently we discussed, and I thought that this is a point which is relevant to what we are discussing right now.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, and so getting it into the workflow is the best way. So, Madhura,
Yeah,
would you see it as having a list of trainings that are available in the LMS and mapping it to usual competencies, like kab kaam aayega
correct,
wala, right? And then making that
correct,
available to
correct.
everybody to use in their conversation. Nice.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's also nice we're talking about these parts because last time we spoke, these were not the parts that were being focused on. So, but Divyam, Sahana, Jagpreet, Sunita, whoever it is from Careers Maina who's here, David, Indumati, I'm just calling on all the names, Alicia, who I have not heard from so far. So feel free to come in because it's your space as well. On any topic. किसी को मैंने डरा दिया, some they've left the room, but yeah.
Also, just if I can add something, which you were talking about knowledge management system. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we are trying to develop it in-house with our tech team.
Yeah.
Because what is happening is maybe certain teams are doing certain things, and the other teams who are not aware that these people are doing something on pilot basis, maybe they're
Yeah.
not aware about their learnings. So if we can have all the things at one place, one can go and check all these things before starting anything, and be it maybe simple also. Like for example, I'm a new person in HR, and I've been given a responsibility to prepare a budget for annual meet. Simple thing.
Yeah.
So I should not go to anyone. Instead of that, I can go to the knowledge management system, look at earlier budgets, and if that person has put some challenges while preparing that, or whom to connect with while preparing that, then I can get that information and try my first budget preparation for the annual meet. So this is what the basic thing we thought in mind, and now we are preparing it project wise also.
Nice.
Yeah.
So speaking of KMS, and this might be also true of an LMS, I had spent some time trying to understand how best we can make one. And these were the 4 things that we put down saying, look, what you need, right? Because most visibly, what you'll see is the technology, right? Should we do it on SharePoint? Should we do it on Google Drive? These are the questions that come. Should we buy it? But actually, we have done it and failed multiple times in many places. So hence, I'm just saying that you also need to then, what are the other things that come in? There is a taxonomy. Key, what is your categorization? I will have like explainers, I will have perspectives, I will have, cheat sheets, whatever it is. Third is the culture. How do you integrate it into, like you were saying, the performance management system? How do you integrate it into the other processes of the organization? And what's going to be the governance? Who's in charge? Who approves what is knowledge? How often is it updated? Right? All of these also need to be thought through and laid out for this to be successful. Purely before I come to you, I do want to check with the other folks who are, I've got your name in back pocket. Others, please feel free to come in on any question that you might have. Doesn't have to be about LMS. Or any thoughts that you want to share. Sahana, lovely to hear from you, please.
Yeah, hello, sir. Sir, regarding like what ma'am, Madhura ma'am said and Piali ma'am said, I I agree with them. And along with that, like if you maintain a proper process document and a checklist where it will be a must for everyone to go through it first before starting a project, I think that would also help them to make it easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw that message as well. Exactly. Yeah, it always comes down to, can you just make it simple? Can you put down what is needed? And the beauty is, right, because you'll always be in small teams, you have 90% of the knowledge that you need to make something. You just need that one evening of quiet time to just put it down and put it together. And you can actually then socialize it and ship it. You can take a lot of calls that you don't have to necessarily get it vetted by everyone, what the process checklist looks like. Can put it down, share it as a first version. My biggest secret is calling it version 1.0 because I am open to the idea that it will evolve, but at least from my side, I've created a version. Now you tell me how to improve. Yes, Krati has a question on chat. Are organization using any skill and competency assessment tools to understand gaps? Usually we rely on managers' feedback, but is there a way to do this more objectively? And two people have plussed the question. Any thoughts on this? Because this is a good question. I have a perspective, but I'd love to hear from the others first.
I'll just add to that as well,
Please.
Girish. So I think recently we've been discussing about this because, normally whenever there are promotion decisions that happen and we've kind of identified an internal pool of high performance, high potentials as well. And we are working towards building a second line of leadership for each of the roles. And whenever this promotion thing happens, it just happens through manager recommendations. And we've been kind of, struggling with it that, okay, in terms of operational performance, yes, those metrics are very easily available, but we discussed earlier as well, that behavioral, attitudinal, those things become very important when it comes to going and taking forward leadership positions. So how do we do this more objectively, that people kind of see it, that yes, some external transparent tool has been used which is kind of evaluating their skills? So is there something that organizations do, and how do you kind of manage this kind of thing, like especially the behavioral assessments and the leadership readiness, so to say, when promotion decisions are being discussed?
Okay. Please come in. Yeah.
So maybe I'll try to answer that. Just recently, like even we had introduced a career growth track for a section of our team, and then we have the same question that if we are promoting, then how are we deciding it? So that sort of led us to putting together a SKA piece, a tool which is your skills, knowledge, and attitude. So it's you can make it as simple or as complex as you want, but just having some defining factors and then just defining what your scoring is going to be like. Look at those competencies, look at those soft pieces. So it's just like the skills that you need for that role, the knowledge that you need for that role, and then the attitude that you need for that role. And that really helped us to sort of like see that role very clearly, helped us to evaluate who is where on that scale, and what sort of gaps are coming up, what training, coaching, mentoring they need before they go to the next level. So that's something that we used very recently.
Thanks, Kamal. And what were the competencies roughly, if you could just share, like top level, and how did you structure it?
So, like for the role, it's like really simple. We had like communication, leadership, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But then you also define it, and if I can pull it up in the next few seconds, I can also share it on the screen. Let me just see if I can pull it up.
So perfect. And typically, right? I'm just putting on chat. Variations of this is what you will end up seeing with some specialization below that, right? Like a seventh one might come in. You might package it as 4 or 7 or 6, but you would see core problem solving. Like, are you getting things done in the time? Are you a reliable team member getting your work done? There will be, are you managing your time and energy well? There will be communication, stakeholder management in beneficiary engagement in various forms. There will be about how knowledgeable are you, and this is usually under leveraged in our sector. To Nandita's earlier point, right? We don't focus on it as much, but do you really understand what you're doing and the value of what you're doing? Culture, how do you fit in with the vision? You call it vision alignment, you call it purpose driven, whatever, right? So it is how aligned are you to the organization's purpose, and how do you manage your teams? These are usually some variations of dimension, and here we are. Thanks so much for sharing this, by the way, Kamal. You are on mute in case you want to speak. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Just a second. So yeah, so this is what I'm looking at. And pull it on. Yeah. This is the, sorry, here we go. This is the skills part of it. So first I just like tried to define what is required in terms of skills, and then just put down 4 sort of indicators for that. And then the skill competency matrix, just the 1 to 5 scale of what that looks like, and then what that weightage looks like. Similarly, for the knowledge, just putting down what that would involve. Again, behavioral indicators and a matrix. And then again, for the attitude, what am I looking for in this role, ownership, teamwork. And then again, you can make it as simple or complex or detailed or, brief as you would like it.
Thanks so much for sharing. This is super cool. And it's a lot of work. Couple of notes of caution as we get into this. We've discussed this separately. I mean, we're getting a little bit into the performance management aspect of it, but this competency matrix is a beast that everybody is worried about quite a bit. And it's fundamental, and we must have one. Few things to watch out for. First is, like I said, at the end of the day, it will boil to variations of something. And as Kamal said, you choose, how deep or how complex you want to be. Depending on the size of the organization, the change management is what is going to be hard. A few choices you have. One, set a set of dimensions, a set of indicators, and how that plays out in the role. That's all you need ultimately, and then the weightage, all of that follows. But when you set that up, a few choices you will then come to in the next level is, should we have ratings or not? And that's a choice. Do you want people to be reduced to one number? So what someone told me, which I really liked, was either have no number or have multiple numbers, in a way that you can't say, I am a 3, you are a 4. Right? I am a 3 on problem solving and a 5 on knowledge and a 2 on module like project management. That helps prevent or limit direct comparison and feeling bad, feeling good, but acknowledging that everyone can be good and bad on different competencies. And ultimately, helping people understand what you mean by each of these is going to, and how do you actually write a performance note that reflects each of these becomes very hard. But for all of this, I would anchor right back to the question, why are you doing this? Kriti, for you, the question would be, you wanted something that is objective. I just want to say that I don't think there is anything that is objective that you will land on. At the end of the day, it is going to be, unless you are like, 100 people doing the same role, which also happens, right? Like if everybody has same KPI of X number of children vaccinated and X number of women given awareness, that's easy to make objective. It's like a sales target. But the minute you step away from that, in most of the roles that we'll have in our organizations, it's going to be softer. And hence this point around behaviors, attitudes that you exhibit along with the core competencies come in. So it will, at the end of the day, be linked to the talent that you have in the organization and the vision of what that talent's potential is and what it's supposed to be. And it's trying to bridge that gap that this entire exercise will be focused on, and therefore subjective. Let's go to Pranay now. Are you all treating AI fluency as a common skill for everyone? If yes, how are you approaching it? Is there anyone in the room philosophically opposed to using AI, which is also a valid position to take? But I'm just curious on who's in the room. And if not, please do come in. How are you approaching AI? Which, of course, every conversation needs to talk about. It's one of those things that you literally, every conversation, whether it's with my family or with colleagues, you end up mentioning it. So perspectives, please come in.
Yeah, Pranay, actually very spot on question. I resonate with Piali, that everybody, I think Piali, you can speak from just, your expertise, but for us, it's very nascent right now. Honestly, people are just getting to use ChatGPT, Claude to refine their reports the way. What it's been very interestingly is an equalizer of sorts for us, where team members who often, see things, observe things on field, were not able to say articulate in the best way for the audience that they're preparing that set of content for. So they've been able to use things like WhatsApp to the AI on WhatsApp to record themselves and get it to repeat that in English and like or write it down more coherently. That's where they've sort of done it. We have a few people who look into tech in our organization, so they've been advocating for all of us to sort of use it more consciously, trying to get it to summarize documents, get it to just depict visualizations a little bit better from our dashboards. In on my side on HR, we've also been able to use it to to just make short explainer videos of our work for different roles, so that they can use that as pre-work assignments, things like that. But really, there's no upskilling that we're doing consciously as an organization. Just wanted to put it out there. But we really can't do without it at this point of time. I'm sure all of us will agree.
I just have one follow-up question to all of you. As Piali, you have mentioned about the pre-work, right? And in the hiring process in the social sector, we definitely give pre-work to the applicants, right? And also the invent of AI, people have started using blatantly in their pre-work where we are not seeing the thought process of the candidates are coming across. So how are you also navigating that if it is the right platform to ask at this point of time, Girish? So
Yeah, I was just
that's
thinking this conversation is going from L&D to performance management to recruitment. All good. Yeah.
so yeah, that
And
was
one
just
thing, I think this is something I started facing when we were sending assignment. We saw AI generated responses and all of that. And then we started doing one thing. So I think for me, I think we call them, it's a, for most of our roles are in person. Also, either we do a live call and we ask them direct questions, and then any pre-work they will be doing coming to the office, and then we will give them a laptop and connection and the questionnaire. They'll do it in the office, and that's how we have been able to kind of curb that AI responses. But again, I think that And in the questionnaire, we very specifically also started mentioning for this part, like if you're drafting an email, this is okay. It is okay for you to use AI. But this particular part where you analyze the data and tell me what you understand, this might not. You have to kind of say what you think and all of that. So we are kind of making it also very explicit as well. At the same time, calling them in the office and letting them do this in a room in the office. That's yeah.
I can add, I think we don't have the ability to do in-person interviews most of the times. And how we've tried to navigate it is in two ways. I think one, it's not a perfect system. So just sharing what we're doing, I think one, just for us to be able to you know, identify what part of it is AI. We actually get some of these assignments to be done in calls and for people to really explain to us how they used AI, right? So, okay, yes, you created a synthesis of a report from a really lengthy one. From that, what did you put on AI? What was the prompt? How did you go about thinking of that? Because eventually, when they join the role, they will also use AI for those purposes, right? So that's okay according to us. And the second thing is, I think in pre-works that are submitted before, like they do it and then they send it not in real time. For that too, I think we just ask like, where did you use AI and how did that improve what you could have done otherwise? So I think for us, it's less about like, honestly, we don't have the bandwidth to also check for AI. So what Piali you're suggesting, I'm also thinking that I'm sure you're also taking the time to vet those particular parts of the assignments to say, are they AI detecting AI with content within that? I don't think we are have the bandwidth to do that at this point of time. So we're also saying, okay, if you are using it, what is that? What purpose is that serving?
I really like that. And I remember once there was an MEL associate who, early days of AI, right, I was hiring. And the reason I took him was he was able to explain exactly where he used it and how he used it. So someone describes it as taking shortcuts with control. I am fine as well as you know what you're doing, right? So that was kind of I think the heart of the way that I would also think of approaching it. It is similar to what you said. Anyone else on the whole AI question and pre-work question dealing with processes with the advent of AI? So we have an interesting problem that, by the way, that senior people are outsourcing their thinking to AI and junior people are outsourcing their research to AI, which ultimately means nobody is actually holding the accountability for sharpness of thinking. So from that perspective, I think useful to think about how do you also, or one of the things that's worth talking about is the culture. How does AI fit into your work is the core question that you need to answer. And then, like, for example, the one philosophy that I mentioned is don't use it at all, right? We are against the idea of, the energy consumption, use, etc., etc. We have philosophical differences with AI. The other is to say we are accepting that it has happened, but it shouldn't take over the core value of what we're doing. Third is to say we want AI to replace everything we're doing and we want to do something else, right? Like choose your lane and then shape your plan accordingly.
Okay, so I just wanted to share the culture also what we have about this technology and AI, the whole thing. And I think Girish, if you know Raj keeps on insisting in terms of where and how we can make the use of technology is what he keeps on asking all of us, not only managers, not the team members, everyone. And even same thing is about AI. So we all of us we try to make the use of AI, but how we can reduce the manual interventions is what we look at. First thing. Second thing, if I want to answer about this interview process, wala whatever discussion we were having, so we also do the similar kind of thing as Divya said that we allow them to use AI, but the way we ask questions and if someone can actually explain whatever the person has done in terms of assignment, we can give a go ahead to that person.
Yeah.
So it's not about that usne AI use kar liya isliye we will not hire that person. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Only the thing whatever he is making, he is aware about the whole process and just taking the help from AI. is what I think is okay with us.
Let me just recap everything we've discussed at the highest level, whatever I have noted down, and I'll share a larger summary with you as well. But just to recap what we've gone through in the last hour 15, we began with individual cases. If someone needs special help, how do you deal with it? How do you set up processes so that the managers can support? How do you ensure you get external support? All of that. And we spoke about how leadership, they can have difficulties and they are so critical, but you need to find ways in which culture can be evolved and integrated across all of them. And we spoke about how you can leverage external facilitators for something like that and manage that tension using art as expression, sometimes not directly tackling a problem, but using their energy to tackle it. Focusing on setting up processes like ensuring that they actually go through codified content, like codifying content, and then using codified content at the right trigger moments. Spoke about a process document that can help in all of this and how processes, again, it keeps going back to process. We spoke about the competency matrix. What the typical dimensions look like, what you need to be thoughtful about as you build it, and the caveats of at the end of the day, it's not objective, it is subjective around what you're doing as an organization. We spoke about AI, of course, on how we should think about it, how we can integrate it, and the pre-work aspect of recruitment, where how do you think about candidates that might use AI, multiple options, bring them into the office, trust them, and ask them explicitly, just ask them to surface where they used it, etc. Across all of this and more, I would love for you to spend a minute to think about what is one thing that you're going to take away from today and just either share or put it into the chat. And this is like one idea that you're going to try in your organization, one practice that you're going to actually start doing, like sending a calendar invite. That would be my suggestion. Or one person that you will now follow up with or explore.